start with the painful scenes. I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python. Grab what I like real fast, stroke until I have everything I attack. Everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact. Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed and
well, that was a little fun. Always nice to get the four-wheeler out here once in a while. Got it ready for winter. But in today's video, I do have a special treat for you. Something that I've never actually painted ever in my life. Never really thought I'd do something like this, but we have the opportunity to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a video of it to document it. But before we go and get through that, I do want to give you guys an update on the process that I'm in with the Civic. We are still waiting on the body kit to come in. So I really haven't touched anything as far as the body goes for it, but I have began to tear down the engine bay. So I am pretty far deep into it now. The only thing I have left to do is to take the bottom part of the exhaust off to get the header off so we can lift the motor out. The power steering line, need to take that off because that's connected to the rack behind it. And then the axles need to get disconnected from the transmission. And once those few things are done, I can actually hook up the hoist and pull this motor out and get it out of here. So I was not going to do this. I was just going to leave it in the car and do the outside and then do the engine bay at some point in time. I don't know. I never really did have a plan for it. But as I was out here one night, I started looking over everything, and I did the body work on the hood to get it ready for primer. And I just started looking at the engine bay, and I just started noticing how bad it really actually was. This is actually worse than what the Neon was. Obviously the Neon is 5 years newer than the Civic. The Civic's 2000, Neon's 2005. So it wasn't in as bad a shape, but this Civic bay is just terrible. Like, it's just, there was no point in me to spend all this time on this car as far as like the bodywork goes and the interior and not touch the engine bay with it being this bad now. Some of you might be like wondering why I was not going to do it, things like that. The only reason why I was not going to do it is because this car actually has very low mileage on the motor. For a 2000, it's only got 101,000 miles on the motor. Let me look at it again. So yeah, it's actually less than 101,000 miles. It's got 100,759 miles on this car. So the engine is still relatively in very good shape. Like, it's always ran fine. I've never had an issue with this engine. I've driven it. I've owned it for what, 6-7 years now. I bought it with, I believe, around 60,000 miles, 70,000 miles on it. As far as what the odometer says. Now, the odometer could have been switched out at one point, but I think it's actually tried and true to the car. So I do believe that it does have that low mileage on it. The only problem is this car was from New Jersey, so it got all those harsh winter months, and you can tell, I could tell when I bought the car it was bone stock. I could tell that there was a lot of surface rust and that it just sat outside. It might have been in a garage, you never know, but these older cars don't really have that great of paint on them from the factory to begin with. This is old technology, so things were not made as good as they are today, so things do tend to rust and rot out quicker. on these cars especially. These cars were really cheap cars back in the day, brand new. These like really inexpensive cars. So you got to take that in consideration versus what was actually built back in the day that actually does last. These, you know, all they did was put, I mean I don't know exactly what they did, but the paint on this and the bullets and everything else, they just surface rust so quickly. So that is the reason why I was not going to do it, because it does have relatively low mileage. I was just going to drive it until it blew. But if you know anything about these Hondas, this is a Y8 motor, so it does have the VTEC, which is the more sought after single jingle is what we call them, because they're single overhead cam motors. They can last for a very long time. Now if you go and turbo it or whatever, you obviously blow it up a lot easier, but these stock can last a very long time because there's no stress. These motors put out what, 100 horsepower if that, you know, so they're really reliable cars. So I'm just gonna leave it. But like I said, I was looking at it and I just started going in depth looking at it, and it's like it was so bad to me that there was no way that I could not do this and do it all at once and do it right, and just do it the same way that we did the SRT4 Neon here. And if you haven't watched this video of the engine bay, go back down, watch the videos. I think there's a couple that I did for this car as far as the engine bay goes. I completely stripped everything out of it the way you should do it. Nothing was in the engine bay when I did it. I mocked it up, everything that needed to be mocked up at the time, cut what I needed to cut at the time, and then tore it all back apart. And I painted the entire engine bay. Inside, the fender wells are actually painted too. Underneath, as far as back as the floor goes, is painted as well. So I did this one absolutely how you're supposed to do them. It just makes for a better paint job, and you can tell, you know, everything is nice. It's pretty dirty right now. I'm actually having a few troubles with this car right now. It's blowing starters on it, and it's losing power to the battery. So for some reason, there's a ground issue somewhere. I need to figure it out. So this has been sitting, and since it's pretty much wintertime, it's done for the season. So I'm not worried about it right now. So my focus is on this car right now to get this completely tore apart, engine bay wise, clean it exactly the same way I did this car, and get it looking brand new again. And then we can paint it when I do the rest of the car and figure out the colors and everything else like that. So but yeah, it's just really bad, guys. Like it's really bad. Like that's the battery tray, and it's just, I mean, it's so crumbly and soft that it's got so much rust that it just needs to be gone. But there are a lot of bolts that are so far rusted out that I'm gonna have to cut every single one of these off. So once I get the motor and everything out of here, I can get the rest of the stuff. I can start cutting these bolts and brackets off that are actually, the bolts are stripped on, and then we can get it cleaned up and things like that. So very close to this. Just want to show you guys where I'm at currently. I have not been out here very much. I think I've been out here twice for a little bit of time working on this car, so I have not spent a lot of time on it since the last video, just because I've been wanting to spend time with my newborn. And if you know anything about having a newborn, it takes up a lot of your time, because every 2 to 3 hours, you know, they want to do, you know, either go to the bathroom or they want to eat. So there's a lot of time consumed into that. So I just have not been out here, and honestly, this can sit. I'm not really worried about this car. I do want to get it done as fast as I can, but I'm not in no hurry. I want to do this car right. I want to make it last for another 10 to 20 years if I can. So we're going to do this car right, and I'll end up making videos on it. I'll try to get back out here, start working more, but until that body kit comes in, I am not really worried at all, because I know the motor in, I can get the motor out of it in like a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, then I can have this motor stripped out of this thing. So once I do that, it's just going to be sitting anyways, and I have a feeling the body kit is probably going to take another month or 2 to get here. So it's really in no rush. So like I said, I'd rather be spending time with our newborn baby and learning about all that and spending as much time with him as I can. That way, when he gets older, he can come out here and he can actually help. You know, that's one thing I'm really looking forward to with him, is that once he gets older, I can start slowly bringing him out here. Obviously, I don't want him breathing in paint or anything like that, but as far as working on the cars and teaching him a little bit here and there, that's my ultimate goal. Like, you know, I'd love to see him out here helping me and teaching him things and seeing if he gets any interest in this hobby, or, you know, passionate about it, or passionate about cars or anything like that. That goes with this. And then the paint side can come later on down the road once he gets older and he can actually be around it more, and I can start teaching him if he wants to. You know, that's the thing. Kids will always do what they want to do. I'm not going to force him into it. He's going to do what he wants, and I'm just going to be here to kind of guide him and help him, and hopefully he gets interest in this stuff like I did. That way I can pass it on to him and he can do something with it more than I have and take it to the next step. That's the goal. But like I said, I'm not going to force it on him or anything like that. We're going to have fun together. Like this Honda is going to be his. My plan is to get it done for, you know, I want to get it done way before this, but when he gets like ready to drive, I want him to drive this car. That way, you know, because you got to think 15, 16, 17 years from now, these Honda EK coupes, I mean, Honda's at all like this year, 2000, this body style, you're not going to be able to find any. You might find a little bit, you know, here and there, the people that have stashed them away for years and years, but they're going to become something of the past. You're not going to see them as much. So with him driving this thing to school and being all decked out, you know, like from when we grew up in the times of like the Fast and the Furious and the body kits and the graphics and the custom paint jobs and things like that, lowered and all that other stuff, it's going to be really cool to see people's reactions of this car that many years from now, because I think it's going to be something that you just won't see anymore, especially 15, 16, 17 years from now. So that's my goal, is that's going to be probably his first car. Maybe not his very first car, because I'm going to be dumping a lot of time and money into it. I want to make sure that he knows how to drive a little bit before I just hand him the keys to it, because it is going to be lowered. We do live out in the country. So I don't want him to like possibly get in a wreck with it or anything like that. I want to make sure it's safe for him. So it might not be his very, very, very first car, but I might let him drive it here and there, back and forth, once he gets comfortable and all that other stuff. So I know when I was a first driver, I had one of those cars that was exactly the same body style I had, and I wrecked it, I think, twice. And that's how I learned how to work on cars, was fixing my own stuff. So, you know, that's part of it. You know, when you're a kid, learn how to drive. You're going to wreck your car. You might not, you might be one of those people that got lucky that didn't, but there's always that strong possibility, being a first-time driver, you're going to get in a wreck sometime or another. And I do not want that. I don't want him in that car, because it's a small car to begin with. But yeah, that's the goal, is to have him, that be his car. He can kind of work on it with me, and we can get it kind of like roadworthy. But we got a long time until that happens, so we're just taking our time on it. But I would like it, have it finished. That way he's growing up into it, and like I can take it to shows with him and things like that. He can be around everything as far as like the community and the scene of the car show community. So that's the goal. But I'm gonna stop blabbing. I've been blabbing way too long. We need to get inside this video. So like I said, it's something that I've never done before, ever. I'm really, really intrigued to do it, because I've just never done it, and I'm a really big fan of this stuff. And it's the perfect time of year. It's pretty much Halloween. Halloween's less than a week away. So we're gonna get to it. I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So we are going to be painting a mask, a Halloween mask. Yeah, it's something way different, I know. Not even close to anything automotive related, but this is a mask from the movie Sinister. This is the Bughuul mask, is what they call the guy. And the customer I've known for a while, ever since high school I've known him, and we've kind of reconnected over the years, because he is big into the mask community. If you know anything about masks and all the rehauls people are doing, all the custom makes people are doing, the mask community is really, really huge now. So there's a lot of really great artists out there that do this type of work, and a lot of them just make them from, you know, scratch. They'll sculpt them, pull them, paint them, and they'll sell them. This one is actually a Trick or Treat Studios mask, and as you can tell, if you've seen the movies, there's 2 movies, Sinister movies out. They don't really show him very well in like lit light. I think there's one image that they might show pretty well that he's in light, but for the most part, it's a very, very dark movie. And this is the villain of the movie, if I haven't made that clear. But to be honest with you, we looked at this mask and he got it, he ordered it, and he got it in his hands, and it's just not, it's not anywhere near close where it needs to be to make it a little bit more movie accurate, let's put it that way. He doesn't want it to be realistic or actually like legit movie accurate. He wants it to be a different color because it's way too like a brownish color right now, and in the movie he's more like a lighter, darker gray color. And there's a lot of details that are missing on this that is not just there. It's not on this mask at all. It's like these are highly produced masks, so they just pump them out and they just spray them and go, so they don't put a lot of time and effort into them. So that is going to be my job, is to go back through this thing and put detail into it and put my own little twist. I am a horror fan, so I've been around for a long time in the horror community as far as like buying stuff and, you know, collecting movies. I grew up like loving horror movies, so this is right up my alley. So I told him, I was like, yeah, I'll take it and I'll do my best. I've never done it before, so I took a couple days and I did a lot of researching and gathered of as much information that I could on this type of stuff, because this is all latex. I mean, it's a different animal than metal or anything that I do. So like, I don't want to ruin this. So I mean, I took a lot of time to figure out what I needed to do from prepping it to cleaning it to like what type of paint I could use on it and how I could preserve it without it coming off and all that other stuff. So I'm going to walk you guys through this. So just understand, this is my first time going through it with you guys too. I'm going to walk you through what I did and what we're going to do, and then we're going to get to painting. So when you first get a mask, if you're wanting to do this at home, or maybe you're an artist and you have never done this just like me and you want to try to do it yourself, this is going to be like a how-to video on how to do something like this. So from everything, so we're not going to pull the hair on this. That's one thing that he does not want to have to re-get done, because he wants to wear it for Halloween this year. So I have to do this while maintaining the hair that's on this. It's gonna be pretty difficult, but we're gonna try to pull it off here for him. So when you get something like this, yeah, it could have any type of contamination on it. I don't know, to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this when you pull fresh latex masks, and they do pulls and they run them through their process and they paint them with certain special type of paints. So the one thing you need to do is to clean the crap out of this, to get all those chemicals or whatever, fingerprints, all that stuff that they use in those factories to make these. You need to get all that stuff off, because if you're going to put something on it, it's probably just going to come right back off or flake off. So that is the number one thing when you're doing this, is you want to make sure this thing is cleaned as much as you can. So the 2 things that I've ran into that you can do that with is, one, you need to get some soap and very, very hot water. Not so hot that it's going to scald you when you're doing it, but you need to get it really, really hot. And you want to kind of mix them too, make kind of like a soapy bath water, and then you want to scrub this thing and just scrub it, clean it, get all the little orifices, every little detail like in the ears and stuff. You want to make sure you clean all that stuff really, really well with that water that's got soap in it. And then you want to dry it. You want to let it dry as long as you need to get all that to dry up. And then what you're going to need to do is get some iso alcohol. So I've been told you really need to use the higher concentrate. I've got 50% here. I think, what is it, 90% is what they really want you to use. But this is what I had, and I just didn't have the time to go out and get anything else. So I cleaned it, got this, and I just got I got a pretty much just a rag, you know, just kind of what I'm doing here. And you don't want to directly just dump it on it like I just did that. I didn't know that was going to come out like that, but you don't want to dump it on it. You want to dump it on your towel or whatever paper towel you got, and you just want to kind of go through, wipe it on, and then you kind of want to wipe off any excess, and then you want to let it dry and do its thing. This is going to clean up a lot of the stuff that's on top, and it's going to sink into that mask and get a lot of that contamination and stuff, that whatever is on these things, to get them off. And then for the most part, I've heard that you can paint right over top of the painted mask. Now, I'm going to take it a little step further. Because I do paint cars and I know how plastic works on bumpers and things like that, I know how paint adheres. So I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to use a aerosol plastic adhesion promoter, and I want to dust a coat on this before I paint it. I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes, and then we will be ready to paint this. But the first thing I need to do is we need to figure out how we're going to cover this hair up so none of the overspray gets on it. So I'm going to take a piece of paper with some tape. I'm going to try to tape as nice as I can against that hairline to cover all that up, because we're going to be painting all this side to side. So I need to figure out how to get all that stuff off. I've got his hair in his ponytail right now. I'm not really too worried about the back side. I might just fade it back there, but really his hair comes down and most of his face gets covered anyway. So but I am going to kind of cover it towards the back. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get a piece of paper, tape this thing off. The tag's going to come off of this. He does not really care about the tag, so we're going to rip that off. So I'm going to do those two things, do his hair, and we'll be right back. So we got all the mask prepped and ready. It's all taped off. It's been drying. So now we are moving on to mixing our paint up. So I've got a few reference images pulled up here that I might go off of. This is going to be totally customized. So I want to make colors depending on what I want. So the type of paint we're going to be using though is the Createx line of the Wicked colors. Mainly they're all Wicked colors, I believe. Yeah, they're all Wicked colors. Now the reason why I'm doing this, I understand, I know that you're supposed to use latex paint for latex masks, things like that for longevity, but I believe this is going to work just fine. And then when I'm done, I am going to seal it off with a certain type of sealer, a clear sealer, to make everything stay. That way, in case it does get outside in the weather, you don't have to worry about it coming off or anything like that. So this mask, the reason why I'm going to use this is it's what I found to be like a medium, like to be whether you're not supposed to use it, I understand, but you can use it. Waterborne paint, you can use it, it'll be all right, as long as you protect it from the elements and things like that. And two, it's what I have, and it's the best thing that I have that I know that'll work. So I am not comfortable with running latex paint through my expensive airbrushes. So this is what we're going to do. Now I am just taking some of these. I've got the white here. I've got like a moss green that I've already mixed up with some white to kind of make a little bit lighter green. tone to it, and I've got some detail black, or yeah, smoke black, and then I've got detail black. So I am just going back and forth and trying to make a good enough tone to where I like. It's getting colder out, so paint's not really cooperating the way I want it to, which is fine. This is part of it. So usually when, you know, I do have it, we're inside my shop, of course, but when it's starting to get colder out, paint does tend to get thicker out here. I keep everything relatively around 60 to 70 degrees out here in the shop at all times, but it just seems like that first initial cold that hits the paint, especially water, this water paint, it just seems to get stiff on me. It gets thicker, that is. So what I do is I start mixing everything up in these cups, these little Dixie cups that I've got. They're plastic. Could not use these if you're using waterborne, or not waterborne, but solvent automotive paint. But for waterborne paint, it's perfectly fine. So that's what I use. And I start mixing these up. And then another thing I do is I end up straining my paint a lot when I notice the paint getting thicker. Because 9 times out of 10, I'll mix everything into my airbrush. But since it's starting to get thicker and the weather's starting to affect the paint, you can tell inside there there's chunks. So I will start straining everything and get all those particles that you can see out. So I like that. A little bit of gray, but I'm going to add a little bit of color to it, just to give it something. That way it's not just totally flat. I like to have a little bit of color in my paint. That way I'm not just spraying a gray color, pretty much. I want to give it some life. So, and I don't want it to turn totally green on me either. So I got to find that happy medium of grayish green, if that makes any sense to you guys. Once I find that out, I can dump it in my airbrush and I can start going. We're getting close. There we go. Starting to turn a little bit green, but not so much to where it's taken away from what we're doing. And then that is a little too dark for my liking. So I'm gonna dump some more white in here. To lighten it up. And then what I usually do, since I have the mask here, and it still has the original color on it, I will kind of hold it up and I'll see what it's gonna look like for me versus what I want to use it for. Because I can always make it darker, right? We can always put a little bit more black in it. It's not a big deal. But this is going to be the main color that we're going to use. So we're going to need a lot of it. So I want to make sure there's enough to cover everything that we're doing. I will not be blasting this helmet as far as that goes. Everything's going to be details on top of what's already there. So that is one thing I've learned with researching how to do these masks, is if you go ahead, if you go and paint some of this stuff and it's already been painted, and you can, I mean, you go look at a mask that's finished, right? Let's just put it this way. If you go and look at a mask that's finished, you know, you can go to the store and buy it. You notice that there's not a lot of paint on a lot of this stuff. There's just not. It's very, very minimal. And that's one thing I've learned with the research and all this is that the more paint you put on a mask, the more brittle it's going to be. It can honestly harm the mask and make it do weird things. It could peel off to where it's so thick it starts cracking. So you gotta be really careful with how much paint you put on this stuff. So everything that we're doing, I'm not gonna be blasting paint on top of it. I'm not gonna be, you know, fogging it out like I do everything else when I do that. It's gonna be minimal paint. So I'm gonna look at it. It's kind of like where I want it to be. This is gonna be like the ground layer of our paint. So I like that. So we're gonna get going. I'm gonna set you guys up. We're gonna start painting this. All right, so we're lock and loaded. Got the paint in the gun. So I've got a lot of these textured effects type of stencils. So that's what I'm gonna be utilizing a lot, because that is one thing the customer really asked of me, is to put a lot of texture into this mask to make it look like it's just been through a lot. So I am pretty much just going to be testing it out. Like I said, not much paint's going to be going on this. We're just going to be working off of what we already got. But he also wants the eye sockets to look like they're popped in. So everything around like the eyes need to be like bright and, you know, bold. So we're gonna do all that in that grayscale color that we just made up, and then at the very end I'll be taking just straight black and I'll be punching out all the other stuff, and that'll be pretty much the end of it. So that's kind of what I'm gonna try to go for as far as the how I'm gonna do this video on how I'm gonna paint. And I can already tell I kind of reduced it a little bit too much. So I'm just gonna play with it. I'm not gonna really. I'm not really too worried about what's already on this thing, because I'm gonna be going in with the black, like I said, and punching the rest of it out. So I'm just worried about doing the details. And getting that really cool look. So you can kind of see it's kind of taking shape already. And I'm gonna grab certain things in here. I'm just kind of testing it out. That's all I'm doing, guys. Just, I'm playing with it is all I'm doing. To find, since this is the bottom layer, like I'm not really too worried about a lot of certain things, because I know some of this might just get covered up. And we're doing light coats because, like I said, we're going to be building this up. So that's kind of, that looks pretty cool right there, the way those eyebrows are. The sockets, where his bone, where your eyebrow bone is. That looks really cool. Now I did, off camera, I heard if you wanted to strip the, like if you're going and doing this and stripping the color off of it, I've kind of heard that you can and cannot do this, but I tested it out off camera, and that is to wipe the mask with like acetone or lacquer thinner. And I'm just going to tell you guys this right now. You have to be very careful with that, because lacquer thinner and acetone get really hot, and it will dry out this type of material very fast. So I took a little bit on my rag of lacquer thinner that I used to clean my paint guns with and stuff, and I just wanted to test it out to see what it would look like. And it definitely took off the paint. Now, did it take it off really fast? No. There need to be multiple layers of wiping to get most of it off. So I really don't suggest doing it that way. I would suggest doing some more research and finding out what is best to actually remove the paint that's already on this, because that, I don't think that would be a safe way, because as much that you need to use on a mask of lacquer thinner or acetone to get the paint off of it, I'm afraid it's just gonna make this thing really brittle. So I really suggest not doing it that way. But I wanted to test it out just because I wanted to see what it would do, really. I was really curious, because I read that you could and could not, and some people were getting away with it, some people weren't. I'm really curious about the people that were getting away with it, if it was a mask kind of like this where it did not have a lot of paint on it, and they were just able to put a little bit on to get all of it off. I don't know. So just take that the way you want it, because I would not do that. I just wouldn't. So I'm starting to, as you can see, I'm starting to build this up, right? And that's one thing that you'll see over time is we're building this up, and I really want to get this thing looking really cool. So it's gonna take a little bit of layers to get it that way, the way I want it. But that's fine. We just don't want to put a lot of paint on at once. It's actually pretty forgiving. Like, I've been trying to, you know, smudge it, and it's really not going anywhere, so that's a good sign. Now, I'm not going to really do too much down here at the bottom because it already has texture in the mask down here. I might do a little bit, but it already has a lot of that in it from the way it was made. So I'm not going to go too crazy on it, per se. But I need to get down here and kind of make a little bit of something down here because there is something going on with this. And then he's got obviously his neck bone color kind of is right here, and it kind of goes this way. And it's got something down here. I need to make this. Just a little bit of highlights from his collar on his neck, the bones that are popping out down there. Need to get those a little bit established. So we'll do that. I was kind of talking to him when he dropped this off to me that when I was looking at the other type of masks that are out there for the same character, I kind of noticed that there were a lot of differences in the mold of the masks compared to everybody else's. So we were working with what we got for this mask. That's for sure. So we're just trying to fill this out a little bit more. kind of like the way that is starting to look and shape up. Oops. I've got this kind of cool multi-stencil over here I'm going to use. Are really good. These dots are really good for skin textures and stuff. And so far, the mask is holding up, so everything that we did to prep it seems like it's going pretty well. Put some more back here. So yeah, that's all I'm doing, is just kind of figuring out what I like and just going with it. I know it's a lot of me using a stencil per se right now, but you got to get that base layer down, because like I said, we're not going to be blasting this, so all these little details that are on this mask right now are going to be kind of showing through like transparency wise, and you're gonna see all these little, you know, all this minor stuff that we're putting on here. So it's very, very important to get your details in first on this type of stuff, and then you can worry about going back in and layering your colors. The way you want them. So I like all that. I'm really just going back through picture wise right now, and I'm pretty much jumping between the pictures that he sent me that he said that he liked. And kind of just making it my own, if that makes any sense. So, in one of the pictures in this area, as far as his eyebrows are really, really bright. Not like really bright, but they're just pretty much one solid color. Now, the only thing about this mask compared to everybody else's is, like, this mask is really flat. So we gotta make it illusion that it's got cheekbones and stuff like that. So that's gonna be probably the hardest part, is to make this thing look like it's got some sort of a cheekbone in it. And that's just, it's really hard to do that with something that it's not technically there. So those little details like that are the things that I'm watching out for right now, as far as that goes. Just to make sure it's going to be what it needs to be when it's done. And like his nose is lit up just on the very front edge here. So I'm gonna go through and just start adding that stuff, that structure to his face, and then I'll come back, and when it's time to put the black on, we'll go over everything, and I'll show you guys what it looks like at that time. So I'm just gonna go through and structure his face the way it needs to be, and then we'll come back and just go to the next color. All right, so I've been messing around with this thing. I've got it pretty much the first layer that I wanted done. Walk you through a little bit of what I've done so far is I started adding like the veins and stuff in them, because these, like, he doesn't really have a mouth. It's just kind of like veiny, kind of is the best way to explain it, and it goes throughout his whole face. So got some of that in there the way I want it to flow. And then what I did was I just took a piece of Scotch-Brite and just started taking away some of the paint that I put on it to kind of make it look more weathered. So that worked out pretty well, just to get some more textures in there, like he's been through a lot. Just something a little bit different. So now what I've got, I'm mixing up just straight black in my airbrush, and I'm really curious to see what it is going to look like now that I've got a lot of the color on there, and I can start adding the black back to his eyes and things like that. So I got my second airbrush hooked up, And like I said, I'm just curious, so I'm just going to go through here and I want to pick out some things like his nostrils I know that are going to be blacked out. Go back through here and add all this stuff back in there. And I need to add some more black to my mixture. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now is I'm just gonna go through and start punching out some of the blacks back in it and kind of just keep going back and forth. Because I'm to the point of where like I need to start shaping it, and I don't want to add a ton more paint on top of what I've already got. That way I know it's not going to get like flaky and start flaking off. But I have noticed using this paint, like I actually went inside for a little bit and ate, and I came back out and I was pulling on it with my fingers to see if I can get it to crack in some areas that had a little bit extra more paint than I wanted on some of it. And it's really, the longer you let it sit, it seems like, the better off it is. Like it's actually sinking into the mass, the paint is. But if you go through and hit, let's say I put some paint down here and I go through and let it dry to the touch and I go and do that, it'll take it right off. So it seems like the longer you let it sit, the longer it cures and bites into the plastic and into the latex. The better off it is. So it's just playing with it is all it is. So I'm just going to go through here and start adding more of the black. And he even thought about cutting the eyes out, like the where it's got slits to where you can see. He thought about cutting all this out, but I told him, I was like, let's finish it. Let's see what it looks like. And then if you wanted to go down that road, we can go down it. It's just this mask doesn't seem like it has the right mold to it. It's like it's not the best mold to work off of because the shape is way off. It's just this eyebrow is punched out more than this side is, and it's just this mold on this is not the greatest. So that's the only thing that I don't really like about this particular mask. It's like it almost needs remade for the most part. Trying to make it look creepier than what it is. It's just this eyebrow's throwing me off because it's not really. This eyebrow is way different than this one, so it's just not how I would want it, to be honest. I think it's starting to come alive a little bit, let's say. And when you're using these types of stencils that are like more textured effects, you gotta be really careful because you can put too much too fast and it just, you'll take away more than put it on from the piece you're painting. So you just want to keep that in mindful of what you're using when you're using it. Now I can start adding. I really want to texture the mouse around it since I've got most of it blocked in now. So I need to find, this one's all right. I don't like that too much. And I can go back in here and just take away, put more textures in it, take away, whatever you want to call it. I'm liking that. I want to get this other color back out here. And I want to kind of highlight some of the stuff that's there and some of the stuff that's not. Let me turn my air pressure down for this one. So when you're using water, if you're like, I've got my 2-gun set up right now. I've got 2 airbrushes with 2 different colors in it. Since I was using that other airbrush, a little tip, when you're using waterborne paint and one's sitting for a long time, every time you go to use it, you want to stir it up or shake it up, whatever. Because if you don't, it'll just be diluted because the water and the reducer will separate itself. So I'm just going through there and brighten up when I need to brighten up. Kind of bring that color back. It's getting there, guys. It is getting there. It just takes some time. You want something cool made, you just gotta take the time and learn and take it as it comes. So I said I'm winging it because I've never painted on this kind of surface. So obviously I'm looking at multiple reference pictures, things like that, but as far as painting on a surface, it's a lot different. Only thing I'm doing kind of like right now is his face has a lot of veins. I call them veins. I don't know exactly what they are, but they're popping out. Most of the pictures I've seen, even in the movie itself, his face is made up of like a lot of veins that are popping out. Since I don't have, because there are some masks that are produced or somebody's made them to where the mask itself, the latex, has got those veins in it. So like when they molded it, when they made it out of clay, they put all those veins in it, and then when they molded it and made the mask, those veins are actually on the mask. So I'm actually making my own. So if that makes any sense. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm adding those not just to his face, but I'm going down here towards his body and his neck and things like that, and making sure they're incorporated in those areas. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm just kind of picking and choosing what I want to put on them, or where I want them to go and where I want to put them. Because I don't want to do a whole thing in it, because then it just looks like pretty much like spaghetti going everywhere. But I want to, look at it, stand back, and kind of be like, all right, this needs a little bit. And even where you're not going to see them, I'm going to put some back here too. So just trying to incorporate a little bit of everything throughout the whole mask, even if you're not going to see it or not. And to be honest with you, when I do this, I don't really know how I go about explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's just that when I look at this mask and I flip it around, I see certain things that aren't there, but I've kind of laid it out with all the layers before it. So if that makes, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like I saw this right there before it was there because of the paint that was underneath of it. Kind of just popped out at a certain way to me. And that's why I kind of chose to do that way. Need to mix up. Every once in a while I'll shake my airbrush, make sure that it's good to go. And he looks kind of funny now because he doesn't have eyebrows, so I need to add those eyebrows in it. I'll go back here. I'm going to add a little bit of that back here too. I think he's starting to look a little bit better. So I'm gonna go back in with my black. And I will constantly jump between like my black and this other color I mixed up until I find what I want, or I get what I want. And to me, this character, pretty much his eyebrows make him. I mean, it's just, his eyes are really big, but his eyebrows are really super big. So to me, it's what makes his facial expression. Starting to look like him. It's starting to look a little bit like him, so. Another cool thing is you can actually spray through your Scotch-Brites. So if you want a little bit of texture in certain areas. Some of these big, I'm trying to find the big, where these got these big openings. They start to look really cool at the very end. You start opening this stuff up. So I'll kind of pick, like I see the line going through here. So I'll try to line like this right here up with it. Not really blasting it, like I said, I'm not really blasting anything on this. Just trying to add to it to make it a little bit different than what you're going to see anywhere else. So just by doing that little bit, it just makes it that much better. To me, honestly, it's just, there's certain times you use a stencil and there's certain times not to. But it just gives you, if you know where to put it, when to put it, it just gives it so much more character and detail within what you're doing. So it's always pretty cool to do all this. This is the fun part. Not saying none of this is fun, but, or nothing is not fun, but this is really what ties it all together. Just makes it look a little bit more realistic, if I can say so myself. Thing's looking pretty cool. Oh, just looking for this one. So I want to explain to you guys that this, let's see where we're time-wise. Okay, we're getting pretty deep in time, but this black is not straight black. This is what they call smoke black, so it's not the darkest black. I'm going to take black and I'm going to go back through here and really darken some of these spots up. But I'm going to continue on doing this. And then we're pretty much close to the end. We're not very far away, so I'm gonna bring it back towards the end and wrap this thing up. So I wanted to show you guys this part towards the end here, what the mask looks like. But I want to show you this exactly thing I'm doing right now because it's something that's very subtle, but it's gonna make the mask pop a lot. Like, it's ridiculous how much this is gonna make a difference when everything is done, his hair's all down and everything else. So a lot of people probably wouldn't think to do this, and I honestly didn't until I started looking at what I was doing. So and that is actually, I've gone too far, but it's all right, is to get this tape and just make a outline around his hair. And all this is gonna do is when his hair's down, it's gonna give it that shadow, that depth from the hair itself. So and that's all I'm doing here is just going back in here. It's kind of like a drop shadow on a graphic. That's what it is. So I'll make sure I'm getting all of it, but yeah, it's just that drop shadow from his head down to his scalp. So when you look at hair where your scalp is, there's a little bit of a shadow right there. Like I said, most people probably wouldn't think to do it, but it will just tie all this stuff together. And the back of this, you're not going to see any of it, but finish it off, do it all at once. So now I am ready pretty much to show you guys. There's a couple things I want to hit, but other than that, this thing is ready. Turned out super awesome. Like, there's so much detail on this thing, it's crazy. So much detail going on in this piece. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Like, I'm gonna give you guys the last final shots and we'll wrap this thing up. Alright, so I lied. There's one more thing that I needed to do once this is all dry. and that is to make a little bit of the parts of this look wet. And the way I'm going to do that is I just mixed up some automotive clear coat, very little of it. Just kind of stir it up here. I mean, I'm going to use very little of this. So be very mindful. Don't glob it on there. A lot of people use epoxy. I don't have epoxy, so this is the next best thing. So what I want to do is make his mouth in certain areas look wet. So this paintbrush I've got has got color in it somehow. So I'm just putting very little. I don't want globs of this. I just want very little of it. Just to give it that wet look. So what happens if you put globs on, it will come off really, really easy. It'll dry up really super hard, and you'll be hating yourself. Because it will not stick. That's the only thing. It just won't. That's just part of it. It will not stick at all. So we want just enough to make it look like it's wet. A lot of people that I've read, I mean, I looked into this, but a lot of people use what they call a 5-minute epoxy, which, hence the name, it probably dries in 5 minutes. This is going to take a lot longer than that to dry. And I'm pretty much just going trying to go underneath all the white areas, kind of mostly in the black, just to give it that wet look. In certain areas. That's all I'm trying to do. You can see that it just makes it look a little bit more wet. Some coming down the nostrils. And then in some areas I want to put more than what I want. And then in some others. So and like his eyes, I'm gonna put some up here just to make it look wet. Give it that pop or that glow. It almost gives it that 3D, 4D look because you're adding another element to it. Now I put clear in this plastic cups I've been mixing paint in. I didn't even think about it, but it's eating through the plastic, so we're gonna be running out here of clear, which is fine. It's not a big deal. Yep, there it goes on the table. But yeah, I wanted to show you guys this, how it's done. It's a little bit time consuming, but it'll make it that much better once it's fully dry. So I'll see you guys in the end. So before we take everything off, the clear coat has dried. It's been a few hours. Now we need to lock in the paint to where it's all protected against rain, anything outside weather-wise. I don't really know exactly the best thing to use. I know a lot of people have used like the clear coat from Plasti-Dip. I've heard that works kind of alright to seal everything in. But I know how Plasti-Dip works, and I just don't think that's the best thing to use. So what I've got here is just some clear acrylic. It's a gloss coating, so it's kind of like clear. I use this on like canvas pieces that I need to seal in the paint, and it works really well. But the key to this is, now this is pretty important. So when I go to use this, I'm not going to sit here and hog it on. You're not going to get close with it. You're not going to try to make it look like it's shiny and glossy. That's what this clear is for, that we put on here. So you pretty much want to do is shake it up really well. Make sure it's coming out pretty good. And you're going to stand back and kind of mist it. Because if you get too close, it's going to make it look shiny. We're just trying to trap in everything. Now, if you want it to look shiny, you can get a little bit heavier, but I don't suggest doing really, really heavy because I don't know if this stuff can crack out if you put a lot on. So we're just gonna mist it on here to lock in this clear, or this paint. It does have a little bit of a shine to it, you can see, but I'm not putting a lot on because I want this mask to flex, and that means if I put way too much of this on and you go to cringle or put it on and flex it and all that other stuff, it could crack or it could do some weird stuff. So we don't want any of that. We just want to kind of mist it on to where it is protecting our paint job from, if it gets water on it, it gets dirt on it, anything like that, we just want to protect it. So you can tell it's got a little bit of a shine to it, but for the most part, it's flat, it's matte, and that's what we want. Just a little bit goes a long way, guys. So this is probably going to be dry in here. I mean, since we just missed it on there, it's probably dry already, but I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes, and then we're going to get to the final shots. And before we get to the final shots, while this is drying, I'm going to sit here and close this video out. It's the end of the video. Appreciate you guys for watching. I think this is the first video that's out there for a rehaul on a Sinister mask. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna try to have this thing up before Halloween so you guys can watch it. Turned out really awesome. Now, if you know more than I do about masks, or if you've done this for years and you have some tips and pointers, put them down in the comments. I'd like to know, because I have a feeling this is not going to be my last one that I'm going to do. I've already had a lot of people reach out on my social media when they looked at what I did on this, and they want one done as well. So I know I want to be doing more. So if you got any tips or tricks, I'd be glad to hear them. So post them in the comments down below. Send me a message if you want to. And I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you guys like this video. It's a little bit different, but it suits the Halloween theme that we got going on this week for the video. So I wanted to kind of do this, get it done for the customer in time, and do something really crazy and creepy. And I think it pretty much, you know, the customer's already seen it, so he's thrilled about it. He's ecstatic because of the way it looks. And I think we made it even creepier than what the movie original mask is. It's hard to tell because it's a very dark movie. There's only a couple of screenshots that you can get of the guy in the movie, so it's really hard to tell what it actually looks like in broad daylight in person. But I think this version of it is a lot creepier, and it's gonna, you know, I think when we let the hair down, I'm gonna give you guys the final shots, you'll see what I'm talking about. So appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned. We're gonna have some more stuff coming up. And yeah, if you have any comments, questions, you know, anything like that, post them down in the comments. I'd be glad to hear from you, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So until next time, peace.